Chef Klaus is from Sweden, great big guy, an incredible passion for both baking and for young people. And he saw Brad, and he was a kid who had given up all hope. And he said, Brad, I'll tell you what, I'm going to create an apprenticeship for you in Sweden. He contacted his friends back in Sweden, and Brad actually went to Sweden. He was a high school dropout going to Sweden to be an apprentice to a chef. He got so inspired there, he actually went and enrolled in a culinary school in Paris, believe it or not, and of course had to speak French to go there. And coming out of that, he decided he wanted to devote his life to young people. He came back to Oklahoma, earned his bachelor's degree and master's degree, and he's now a teacher. So that's one story of what FrancisTuttle did. The other story is about a young woman named Shawnee Watson. Shawnee Watson grew up in rural Oklahoma, very small high school, found out about FrancisTuttle, and she came there to study pre-engineering. Now, many of our pre-engineering programs in this country leave a lot to be desired, but the one at FrancisTuttle would bring tears to your eyes. It's an incredible program. She got into that program, she really excelled, and then she won a full-ride scholarship to a technical institution many of you have probably never heard of called MIT. And coming out of there, she's now, even though she's still very young, earning a six-figure salary, working in Paris with Air Liquide. So this is a great example of the kind of thing they accomplish at FrancisTuttle. Before I turn it over to Tom, he asked me to tell you one important fact about what he and the governor share. You know, the real dividing line in Oklahoma is between the Sooners and the Cowboys. The Sooners are the OU, that's the OU team. The Cowboys are, of course, Oklahoma State. They call themselves Pokes. So Tom wanted me to tell you that both he and the governor are Pokes. And with that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Tom Friedemann.
Thank you, Bill. I'm not quite sure I know what to say about that, but cowpokes, that's a slang for cowboys. And so when we say go pokes, that's where that comes from. But thank you, Bill, and I am delighted to be here and be a part of what I view as the most pivotal and meaningful conversation taking place about the future of educating youth in America. I'd like to salute Bill and the Harvard Graduate School of Education for bringing to light on a national scale something we in Career Tech have been preaching for years, and that's that we have a severe workforce education problem in this country, and it's never going to change unless we have a national resolve to do something about that. That's why it's so appropriate and my distinct honor and privilege to introduce to you a key person who can help us get there. And by that, I mean that's today's keynote speaker, my governor and governor of the great state of Oklahoma, the Honorable Mary Fallon. I've known Governor Fallon since her college days at Oklahoma State University, where we both went to school. Go Pokes, that's pistols firing, guys. And it's March Madness, I'm sorry, I just couldn't get over that. But if you're doing your brackets, OSU will go deep, so there's a little inside hint on that deal, okay? Anyway, Governor Fallon was just as tenacious and pioneering at OSU as she is now, so it was no surprise to me when she was first elected governor in 2010 as the first ever female governor of Oklahoma. Governor Fallon campaigned on education reform, among other issues, and has delivered on major overhauls to education in Oklahoma. Her number one priority, though, as she often says, is creating and retaining Oklahoma jobs. Her actions and words show that she knows how important the workforce training providers are, like community colleges and career tech centers that we have in Oklahoma, and she knows how important that is to that effort. The governor has a long and distinguished career in public service. She was first elected to public office in 1990 to the Oklahoma House of Representatives. This began her dedication to common sense solutions to the challenges facing Oklahoma families and small businesses. Governor Fallon first made history in 1994 by becoming the first woman ever to be elected lieutenant governor. And she would hold that office for 12 years. During her time as lieutenant governor, she focused her attention on issues affecting job creation and economic development. In 2006, Governor Fallon was elected to Congress, where she represented the 5th District of Oklahoma. In Congress, Fallon served on the committees for small business, transportation and infrastructure, natural resources, and armed forces. During Governor Fallon's administration, Oklahoma has consistently ranked among the top states in job creation. In fiscal year 2012, Oklahoma added a net 38,000 jobs, which ranked second in the nation in job creation. In her first session as governor, Fallon saw many of her legislative initiatives signed into law, including historic lawsuit reform and workers' compensation reforms, comprehensive education reform, and policies to modernize and streamline government operations. She also introduced the Oklahoma First Energy Plan, a comprehensive energy roadmap for the state. In 2013, Fallon was named Job Creation and Workforce in 2013, she named Job Creation and Workforce Training as one of her top priorities. And what's neat about this is in line with something that I'm thrilled to share with you, and that's the fact that Governor Fallon is slated to take over the National Governors Association as chairman later this year. Her focus will be on what else? Workforce education. We couldn't The applause is just so strategic because my next slide is we couldn't have a finer proponent and speaker for this occasion. Please join me in helping welcome Governor Mary Fallon.
Go Pokes. Go Pokes. Well, thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today. And what a wonderful crowd you have. I heard that your crowd was so big that you had spillover room, and my Secretary of Education, who's here with me, told me she was in the bar listening to some of the speeches, and I thought, well, that's an interesting place to be going to a conference, but then Bill told me that you had so many people that you had to spill over in some other rooms and videotape this into other areas. So congratulations, Bill, and we appreciate you and Ron and all the work you've done to put together a wonderful symposium like this, a very important conversation for our nation, and one that I know will certainly benefit our governors throughout our 50 different states and our U.S. territories. And it's just a great pleasure to be here with you. And I want to say to Dr. Tom Friedemann, he does a super job at FrancisTuttle Technology Center. Oklahoma is very, very proud of our technology centers. We've had them for over 47 years, and Oklahoma never lost its commitment to our career technology schools in our state because we understand the importance of technical skills in our workforce and how it is a pathway to success and prosperity in our state and much needed by our businesses and our employers. So Tom, thank you for your leadership. We appreciate what you've been doing. And this conference is so important that not only do I have my Secretary of Education, Phyllis Hudecki, here, but my Secretary of Commerce, Dave Lopez, and his team with his Commerce Department, several of our career technology people here. So we think this is a very important discussion for not only Oklahoma to be involved in, but certainly for our nation to be involved in. And I have to just say, since we're here on the Harvard campus, that I also brought one of your outstanding students who graduated from the Kennedy School of Business and Kennedy School of Government, one of your outstanding students, and that is one of my staff members, Andrew Silvestri. Andrew, glad to have you here. I told him I was going to mention him because he's seen a couple of his professors, and we were over at the campus earlier today meeting with the University of Marshall and had a great time. Now, I just want to say that I just appreciate everyone who's at this, whether you're with the university, whether you're with a career technology center, whether you're with a business, a private sector concern, whoever you might be representing today, because this is very important to our nation. It's important to our American families that we do help develop the very best possible way for prosperity so that all students, all of our young folks in America, and even adults who go back to school, can have a pathway to prosperity, as was mentioned in your 2011 report. I have a particular interest in this subject, as you just heard me being introduced by Tom, because my husband and I have 6 children between us. So my goal is to make sure that our 6 children have a pathway to prosperity so they can support themselves as they grow up to be adults. And not each child chooses the same path, as you just heard. Bill mentioned a couple examples. Tom mentioned some examples. There are different ways that people enter into the workforce. And so our goal at this conference, and I think with the Harvard School and those representing this audience, is to figure out how we can strategically shape that future of our young generations of future workers, because we need them for our businesses, we need them for our estates, and to get them onto a path of success, however it is that they choose to get to that path. And it's not always equal for each student, each young person. They have different ways of getting there. And so this is a very important thing. We also believe that not only is having a pathway to prosperity important for our students, but frankly, it's important for our nation. It's important for our national security. It's important for our economic security. It's important for our economy. And it's important that we have that sustained prosperity. And we have to prepare our young folks and even young adults to have productive lives, have productive careers. So in Oklahoma, we have implemented what we call the 3 C's: college, career, and citizen ready. We want to make sure that they're either ready for college, if that's the path they choose to go down, or a career, if that's the path they want to go straight from high school into a career, or we certainly want them to be all citizen ready, to be good, productive citizens within whatever state they are. But unfortunately, we are also here because we believe and we know, according to reports and studies, that in our nation we're falling short. We're not always giving our children and our young students the path that they need. Too often our children are entering into adulthood without being college ready, without being career ready, without being citizen ready. And that's a recipe for disaster, because that can lead to so many other things that states have to deal with, whether it is poverty levels, whether it's the gap between the poor and those who are richer, whether it is our incarceration rates within our states, whether it is single parenthood, welfare, and there are so many different areas, realm of areas that a lack of education, a lack of skill sets, a lack of preparation can affect society and affect our state. So somewhere along the way, we have gotten sidetracked as a nation, and we're leaving way too many young Americans behind. So our goal as a nation, as this conference implies, is to rediscover that pathway to prosperity. How do we get there for our young men and our young women? So our goal of this conference has been to start that dialogue, to have a discussion between all the people involved in this area, and hopefully to ignite a spark, ignite something across our nation that will move us in the direction that we need to be going. And I can tell you, as the incoming chair of the National Governors Association, there are governors that are ready to step up and take charge of this issue, because we believe it's important. Now, back in my parents' day, and back even when I was a young girl growing up in a small town of 2,000 people, in a small Oklahoma town, pathways to prosperities for Americans back in those days was that you'd hopefully graduate from high school and then you'd get a job. I mean, that's the way it was back in my parents' day. And frankly, even growing up in my high school, there weren't a lot of my classmates that went on to college. But I did. My parents knew it was important. In fact, back in my old days, I'm dating myself now, but I can still remember that the boys, and it, by the way, varies from different states and different populations, but back in Oklahoma, the boys took a shop class. They learned a skill set. They don't think they do that much anymore. And the girls took home economics. In fact, I got the Betty Crocker of the Year award. But I will tell you that my children, my daughter's here today, it's her birthday, that they don't believe I can cook still to this day. My husband is writing a book. It's kind of rare to have a first gentleman, because there aren't that many women governors. There are 5 of us, so the first ladies always write cookbooks. So someone, hope he doesn't see this video. So someone talked my husband into writing a gentleman's cookbook, a first gentleman's cookbook. So he's calling it Burgers and Beer, Grilling with Wade. So they were looking for recipes, and they asked my children and my husband for one of my favorite recipes that I do really well. And he said, well, from what her kids tell me and what I know about her, her best recipe is black bottom chocolate chip cookies. So someone emailed my office and wanted to know my recipe for the black bottom chocolate chip cookies. I said, well, it's real easy. You get one of those tubes of cookie dough. Nestle's is always the best. Cut it up into squares. You put it in the oven at 350. You go away. You start checking your emails. You make a couple of phone calls, see what's on CNN News. Come back in about 20 minutes. You got black bottom chocolate chip cookies. But anyway, sorry, I got a little diverted there. So if you want to buy a cookbook, it'll be out this summer. That recipe may not be in there. I also made black bottom potatoes at Thanksgiving, but that was kind of fun. But anyway, get back on the subject here. But back in the old days, seriously, students took different types of classes than they do today. The American dream of getting the American middle class life was different back then. You'd hopefully get a home. You would get married, you'd have children, you would be able to get a good pension system. I mean, a lot of us are still looking for that good pension system. You'd be able to hopefully be able to do that back in my parents' day and back in the early 60s and 70s with a high school diploma. But we all know that today that doesn't really get you where you want to be. In fact, recently, in the early 1970s, nearly 3 out of 4 jobs only required a high school diploma or less. And most of those jobs paid back then what was considered to be a decent wage, a good wage. And now you and I know that in today's economy and today's world that number has changed. That number has dropped from 75% to roughly 40%. A third of the jobs now require a high school diploma, and dropouts are more than likely going to be making about $25,000 a year, which won't get them to that middle-class American dream life that back 40, 50 years ago, Americans used to anticipate they would have, much less get them a pension. And so that is not a pathway to prosperity or a pathway to success. So our education and training system has been, in America in the past, I think, the envy of the world, but now it actually has to face some hard, cold facts. And that is that we have too many students who don't finish high school. Nationally, only 78% of our public high school students make it to graduation. The numbers are much worse for minority and low-income students. And that's just unacceptable. We are Americans, and we can do better in America and beat those numbers. Too many students go to college, frankly, unprepared. Too many students have to take remediation courses. Costs the parents a lot of money when your students take the remediation courses. It frustrates the students. Many of them get frustrated and drop out. Costs the states, I will tell you, it costs the states a lot of money for our higher education systems. And then they end up dropping out because they're not prepared to go to college, and then they have no degree, and then the employers are still trying to find the degreed people to go into their workplaces. And there are too many employers in Oklahoma and around the country who are saying they just can't find the type of skill sets that they need in terms of workers. And the colleges and universities are taking too long, many times, to be able to shift gears and to meet the needs of the type of workers that the employers in certain industries are needing. In fact, our Oklahoma Department of Commerce recently took a survey, and they surveyed over 2,000 of our businesses in Oklahoma, asking them where we need to make improvements in our business climate in our state. And at the top of that wish list of our 2,000 businesses was a more skilled workforce. That's what we need in our businesses, a more skilled workforce. And national numbers certainly reinforce that and tell us that that's important too. So while in the past America has led the world in student achievement and the production of high-tech workers, now we're 17th. We're 17th in that area. We are 17th in the production of engineers. We're 21st in proficiency in science. We're 25th in the world in mathematics. And what that means is that America will no longer be the superpower of the world, the nation that the world looks up to, if we don't change course and if we don't reignite the passion to match the skills of what our businesses need with the workforce skills, and to make sure that we have those pathways of prosperity, whatever that pathway might be, whether it is going from high school into a career technology center, getting a certificate, getting an associate degree, or getting a college degree. And so studies have shown now that we actually graduate more physical therapists in America than we do engineers, and that won't work either. So the question is, how do we meet these challenges? Well, first, we do have to build those modern pathways to prosperity to reflect upon the needs of today's businesses, to encourage more technical skills, to provide more flexibility, more efficient educational opportunities to our young folks. And this is a job that will require all of us in this room working together, both educators, policymakers, employers, all working together in collaboration, and it's going to be very, very important. And I believe that pathway forward will require three different approaches, a three-tiered strategy approach to get there. First of all, I think we have to start with our public schools. And it starts with improving our public schools and our education system itself, and making sure that when our seniors graduate from high school that they are career, college, and citizen ready. That a high school diploma, 12th grade diploma, actually means that they are proficient at the 12th grade level. How many times do you have an employer that will come up and say, I can't find people that can read and write or do math, but they got their high school degree? How many times do we hear that? Secondly, we need to dramatically boost our post-secondary education, and that doesn't just mean our college education degrees. We certainly support that. But equally important is increasing the number of certificates that are awarded by our community colleges or by our career technology centers, which will all continue to play an important role in rebuilding that path to prosperity. And finally, and the third part of that is that we have to work very closely with our businesses to make sure that we know what skill sets that they need, what will help produce the types of skills that businesses can build upon, whether it's expanding their businesses, whether it is bringing new jobs to the marketplace. So as a governor and as the incoming chair of the National Governors Association, we believe that more work needs to be done on this very important topic. So I want to just share with you a couple of examples of state-based initiatives, but we're doing not only in Oklahoma but elsewhere throughout the nation. And first I want to just say we know that any push to improve our workforce will have to start with our common education system. So in Oklahoma, we started, when I first was elected a couple of years ago, working on steps to improve the academic performance within our common education system. And we took a couple examples from other areas of the nation. Governor Jeb Bush did some great work in actually helping schools look at their results, to measure them, to have accountability, to have academic standards, and he started a system called Grading Schools A through F. And several states have done that. We've done it in Oklahoma so that parents, businesses, educators, the superintendents, certainly the students would all know how the schools are performing, how the system is performing. And I got to tell you, that's not an easy thing to put into place in a state, but I do think it's important to be able to measure what you anticipate. You know, there's an old saying that you have to inspect what you expect. You have to look in and inspect and make sure that you're getting the expectations back, the results back that you expect from your education system. Instead of sending our children on to the next grade with subpar reading skill sets, we decided that we were going to end social promotion. And so we passed into legislation that a child should have to be able to read by the third grade level, and if they're not proficient at the third grade level, they wouldn't be socially promoted on up to the fourth or the fifth or the sixth grade, because that's why we find that there are children that will graduate from high school, 12th grade diploma, but still have 8th grade reading skill sets. So we decided that if a child can't read by third grade and the grade appropriate level, they can't learn the math and the science and the social studies and the other things that are important for them as they go through to get their high school degree. We also believe that every classroom should have an excellent teacher, should have a high quality teacher in itself. So we eliminated something that was holding us back from making sure that we had the very best teachers in our classroom, and we passed some legislation. It's called Trial de Novo in Oklahoma, to where if we found that a teacher was not meeting up to those standards, weren't making the grade per se, that we were able to encourage them to change on to something else. But in Oklahoma, we do have good teachers, but on occasion, you might have somebody that's not up to that level, and so we have a framework now that we can address that issue. And of course, we want to make sure that our students are also being prepared to enter into those higher levels of learning. And so we adopted a national model by the Governors Association called Complete College America. in which we're encouraging more students, even adults, to get degree completion, whether it's degree completion of an associate degree, a college degree, whether it's getting a degree completion of a certificate from a career technology center. We think that's very important in our state. And then we also worked on what we called end of instruction exams. We call them ACE, Achieving Classroom Excellence. And we said that you have to pass these series of exams before you can get your diploma. And this was the first year that that went into effect. We passed it 4 years ago, and so we've been able to measure some of those results. And results have been that remediation rates are starting to decline in Oklahoma, so our students are better prepared to enter into college or career tech or wherever it might be. And we're certainly very proud of all those different accomplishments that we've been able to achieve. So, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And then, of course, we're very proud of our modern pathway to prosperity, and that is through our career technology centers. And we believe that we have one of the best models in the nation. In fact, I've had several people tell me that today, Tom, that's a very successful program for our state. So we started measuring our results, and career technology centers are a very important part of our workforce, our Complete College America program, and we started measuring those results and what we wanted to do. And studies have shown that not only have we met the marker for our first year, but we exceeded the number of degree completions, whether it's certificate, associate, or college degrees. We've exceeded that this first year alone by 2,000 new degrees in our state. Thank you. So, here's what we found out about our workforce in Oklahoma, and here's why we're focusing on those skill sets. In 2018, we know that studies show that in Oklahoma, that for the new jobs that we're going to be creating, the 87,000 of new jobs that we project we're going to create in our state will require a college degree. So we take that as a fact. Then we know that those that will require just a high school degree will be half of that, half of the number of jobs. So about 42,000 jobs will require a high school degree or a certificate type from one of our career techs. And then the last number is that so we started with 87,000 to 42,000. Now, for those types of jobs that will require less than a high school degree is only 17,000 jobs. So what we know in Oklahoma is that we have a big challenge and that we have to turn out more certificates, more associate degrees, more college education degrees to meet the workforce needs of our businesses in our state. And so that's why we put a big focus on our pathways to success, and certainly our career technologies, our centers are a big part of that. For many individuals, the traditional going to college can be too expensive. Maybe it's not the right time in life. Maybe they have a marriage. Maybe it's a financial reason that they can't go. So the career technology centers and getting a certificate in a particular career field can offer just a good paying job as a college degree can. Like we know in Oklahoma that we have very strong industry sectors in engineering and with our energy sector, with our aerospace sector, and the career technology centers in our state play a huge role in helping these two major industries find the type of skill sets that they need. And as a study from the Pathways to Prosperity points out that 27% of the jobs that are from certificates pay more than the average bachelor's degree recipient. So you can have good paying jobs with the career technology centers. They offer flexibility. They help with those who might not be able to go down that traditional career path. So as you look at the other states and what some of the other states are doing, you look at Kentucky for an example. They have community and technical colleges participating on online initiatives that provides courses and programs to students who can't make it onto campuses. A really innovative part of their initiative is that students can learn on demand when they have the time to do that. They can work, they can have a schedule that they choose, they can take modules, they can take mini courses to go into different professions, different skill sets, giving their students more flexibility as to how and when and where they go to college or to the career tech system. And that is once again redefining how we build the skill sets and who goes to college, who gets a certificate, and how they can be successful. So we in Oklahoma and in Kentucky and states like that believe that career techs are very responsive to the needs of our businesses and to our citizens. In Oklahoma, our career technology centers are locally controlled and also allows them to develop better partnerships with the businesses in that particular community. Because in different pockets of Oklahoma, you may have different segments that need a certain skill set. Like in western Oklahoma, we have a tremendous amount of energy development going on. But down southeastern Oklahoma, it's a totally different skill set that they need. So the career technology centers can balance the needs of whatever community, whatever portion of the state that they're in, to match the needs of the workers and the businesses that are there. So that's one of our great things that we're doing. Lastly, our career technology centers are also suited to engage the community in whatever the needs are in the businesses once again. So another great model for the pathway to prosperity. Now I want to tell you a couple of things that we've done in our state. In Oklahoma, under our great leadership of our Secretary of Commerce and also our economist who's here, Deidre Myers, I don't want to forget her, is that we have worked towards developing a model of analyzing our industries. We have 669 industries in our state. We took the industries themselves, we developed a software model to where we analyze those skill sets needed for those businesses. We put in 72 different variables in there with 50,000 data points, so that my Commerce Department could come back to me and tell me, Governor, here's what we need. Here's what we need for the jobs today, the jobs in the future. Here's the skill sets. Here's when we're going to need them. Do we need them right now, or can we wait 4 years to get those engineers in the pipeline? So they developed this great roadmap for me to be able to work with our businesses, work with our institutions of learning to build upon those skill sets so that we can generate what I call wealth in Oklahoma, to find out where's our best paying jobs going to be, where do we need to turn out those skill sets. And so we found out in Oklahoma that we have 5 critical areas. We have lots of different industries, but 5 critical areas: aerospace, defense, energy, agriculture, biosciences, information, financial services, transportation, and distribution centers. Those are our core wealth generating centers in our economy. And so now we're focusing with higher education and our career tech to be able to make sure that we have the workers in those particular areas. Another thing our Department of Commerce did was we decided that we were going to develop an online, kind of like a dating system, a match system. We call it okjobsmatch.com, because frequently I'll have employers tell me, I can't find the workers I need. And then I have some friends out there in the marketplace saying, I can't find the job I need. And so we developed this online website, and now we've populated it with over 300 companies and 60,000 plus resumes into this online computer system that actually takes the skill sets of that person and takes the skill sets the employer needs and then runs these different variables, and they can match up to find the resumes. Employers can find the people they need, and the employees can find the different industries that they might be qualified for. For an example, if someone has a skill set in the energy sector, that might be transferable into the aerospace sector, which is one of my top 5 wealth generating industries in our state, and vice versa. And so now, instead of just looking at a resume that said they graduated from Oklahoma State University, you're getting a resume that actually has skill sets through this program, to where the employers might even find employees from some industry they never thought about. So I think it's going to be a great way that we're going to be able to help our citizens throughout our state. And there are great examples of this throughout our nation. Governor Haslam out of Tennessee, he has worked with his Economic Community Development Department to do a top-to-bottom analysis of economic development called Jobs for Tennessee program, and he enlisted people throughout his whole state. He did interviews with stakeholders. He had individuals involved in that. He developed a guideline for his state. So you'll see other governors throughout the nation trying to focus specifically on skill sets that are needed and how we can best develop these pathways. Great examples of that. So as we continue as states to deal with some of the issues that we're facing as a nation, such as sequester, which we've all heard a lot of talk about. You'll find that governors are even going up to U.S. Congress, the U.S. Senate, and to President Obama and meeting with them and talking about our workforce programs in our nation, which we all know we have a lot of. And we think that there is a better way to collaborate, to work together, to refine, to fine-tune our Workforce Investment Act itself to help save some money, especially as we're going through some of these sequester programs. And by the way, that is a Republican and a Democrat issue. It's not one that's for any particular party. It's Republicans and Democrats and the Governor's Association coming together saying, we think we can make this better for our nation. And that's encouraging these days when you see all the things going on in Washington, D.C. So the careers pathways or programs, the programs you've outlined in your report are a great example for governors to be able to follow, to be able to utilize, to help us be able to keep our economy strong, to make sure that our children have the best pathway forward, whatever that pathway might be, so they can find the jobs that they need, so they can be productive citizens, so they can achieve the American dream that all of us want our children to be able to achieve. And so I just want to say how much we appreciate what this conference is doing, what Harvard and the School of Education, the Pathways to Prosperity's report has done to help give us a roadmap so that states, that governors, businesses, educational facilities, certainly our career technology schools can look at to help us redefine, reignite the spark in our nation so we will continue to be that superpower in the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Governor. A little bit of housekeeping, and I want to leave you with a couple questions to think about the afternoon as you go through these sessions. The Sputnik notion. We started talking about what would it take to create a Sputnik moment. What would we do to give people that sense of urgency, even fear, that we felt? I was 7 years old in 1957, and I can remember just listening to television, and it wasn't just Sputnik, it was also the nuclear threat. Remember how we'd hide under our desks and the practicing for the drills and all that, and Khrushchev on television telling us he was going to dominate. There was a sign on the bus that used to be, this, Khrushchev says that this girl will someday live in a communist country. And it was clearly in the U.S., and we were just nervous, and we had to do something fast to catch up and stay ahead. And the question is, what is it we would do? The second question is, if we felt it, if we felt the kind of urgency that I'm talking about, what would we do then with that sense of urgency? And how would we organize ourselves to be coherent and to do things that really did make sense? A number of things people have talked about would be part of the menu, but who's in charge of working out the menu? Do we think just laissez-faire individuals and companies doing it on their own is going to do it? Or do we need well-structured intermediaries controlled by influential people in the civic realm? And to what degree is it civic? To what degree is it public? I started off earlier today saying it's more than public policy. If we want sustainability over a long time, we can't be dependent on the election cycle, for example. So what would we do? How would we manage it? Who's in charge? And then this question of general versus specific skills. The governor talked about training tailored to the needs of particular sectors. But a lot of the work we did in the 90s, businesses were telling us, just send us somebody who's trainable. Send us somebody who knows how to come to work on time, is willing to respect authority, has got some basic reading and math skills, and we'll teach them what they need to know. Is that not the story anymore? Do we really need a lot of really job-specific, industry-specific training? Or should we be focusing on general skills? Grit is one of the things people are talking about in the academic world these days. Getting kids who are really determined, who don't give up in the face of difficulty, who work really hard, who respect authority, all the stuff, 21st century skills, soft skills. 50 years ago we had another name for it, but it's the same stuff. You know, just willing to come to work and do the job. You can imagine that there are sort of job types of context which would help people to learn those things, but the emphasis is not so much on the job-specific skills as it is on the general skills that teach somebody how to be a learner and how to be adaptive over time. And if it's more the adaptive, gritty, determined, good worker we're interested in, how is that training different from training that's more narrowly focused on individual industries? And how do we think about that? And we talk a lot about this, been a few times a day, we talk about which jobs require a college degree. What does it mean to require a college degree? Okay. It may be that the most people in particular jobs have college degrees, but does that mean that the job requires a college degree? Okay. If it doesn't really mean it requires a college degree, how do we reframe that so that the people who need to make different decisions will understand what those decisions need to be? All right. And if we want skills certifications, what is it that needs to be certified? Exactly. Okay, so there are lots of useful conversations that we need to have this afternoon. There's lots of clarity that we need to be able to provide. People always say, oh yeah, we know how to do it, we just need to do it. But there must be something we don't know how to do because we haven't gotten it done, right? So well, let's figure out the pieces we don't know how to do, figure out how to communicate about those clearly, and then get on with the work.